Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Uncomplicating the Chaos, How to Simplify Job Site Management. We're excited you could join us. My name is Annie Falcone, and I'll be moderating this discussion about simplifying construction sites through improved productivity. Productivity isn't only about getting more done. It's about reducing risks and costs while work is being done better. And that's what we're talking about today. We have two experts ready to share simplified approaches and best practices to maintain communication, quality, and productivity. Before we begin, let's go through some quick tips to make sure your webinar experience is the best it can be. At the bottom of your screen are resizable and movable application widgets. Feel free to move them around to make the most of your desktop space. The slides will advance automatically during the presentation. If you need to enlarge them, simply click the Enlarge Slides button in the top right corner of the presentation window. And if you need technical assistance, click the Help widget in the bottom left corner at any time. And you may submit questions using the Q&A widget at any time. We will answer as many questions as we can at the end of the presentation. And if a more informative answer is needed, or if we run out of time before we answer your question, then we will follow up via email. After today's presentation, you will receive a link with on-demand access to the webinar, so you can watch it again at any time, as well as share the content with your colleagues. So let's go ahead and introduce our experts. Dean, let's start with you.
Thank you, Haley. Been in the industry for 38 years, 29 years with PCL Construction as a field operations manager, responsible for pre-construction, construction, major project delivery. Spent most of my career specializing in healthcare and aviation, but also been involved in many other types of ICI type projects. I'm the national representative and co-developer of our PCL Accelerated Superintendent Development Program and our High Potential Field Leadership Program that readies superintendents throughout their career for large and complex projects. Glad to be here.
Great, thanks. And how about you, Carrie?
Hi there, I'm Carrie Hunter. I'm VP of Business Development for Sensera Systems. I've been with the company almost since inception, since the very beginning, and have worked in sales and leadership for over 25 years. Have had the pleasure of working with Dean and his teams at PCL for many, many years now. And at Sensera, we manufacture cameras in the US that connect through our site cloud, and that allows us to view projects in a variety of different ways, whether that's security or project management. So we assist projects all over the world with viewing their sites, and I'm happy to be here today as well.
Great, thank you both. So let's get started with the idea that it's probably not a surprise to hear that construction productivity is declining. A recent report from the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago and the University of Chicago Booth School of Business shows that construction productivity is on a downward spiral, declining by roughly 1% per year since 1970. And by 2020, productivity levels had fallen below what they were in 1950. Why is this happening, especially as other industries are trending in the opposite direction? Dean and Carrie, do you have thoughts on this?
I'll go first. Sure. Interesting statistics. Thanks for sharing those. And we are aware of those in the industry. There's so many factors that depend on productivity. External organizations like material availability, the availability of locally or globally shipped materials, disruptions in factory closures, supply chain issues, inflation. All of this is a heavy contributor to being productive at the work face. On-time delivery from vendors, we are seeing much longer delivery and fabrication times in the post-COVID world than we did maybe 5 or even 8 years ago. Equipment supplies, hardware and tools are changing. Even how we train our craft labor and the subtractor availability is changing. Specialized skills will do the job are not necessarily always ready. And even simply just even encouraging people to become involved in the trade craft. We have seen a decline in the amount of apprenticeships and the youth that's interested in being in the industry. So we've left some of our high production installations to actually an aging workforce. Industry standards and other requirements that are specific must be followed. And do we know who those are or what they are? So we're being also guided by a lot more stringent standards that are coming into our industry.
Yeah, and I think also, keeping in mind, obviously Dean's talking about all the things they're thinking about preparing for projects, but even once everything is ready to go, materials are there, equipment is on site, teams still face setbacks that cause them delays and errors and additional costs. Did workers show up? Were there not enough people hired for the job? Was something stolen the night before? Now they don't have materials on site. All of these things are happening real time, and the jobs must go on even when those things happen. So even things like, maybe something in the project was installed incorrectly or out of turn or something, and then that has to be gone back. They have to go back and correct that. Things like that are all things that are setbacks on time and efficiency. And when there's so many variables, you need to try to, or you hope to try to minimize the chance for something to go wrong. So I think it's a balancing act that requires real-time visibility to see kind of what's happening on your site. I think, the more accurate data that we have on job sites, the better we can respond to those setbacks and delays and things like that. I mean, if you don't have any visibility, it's hard to know what's happening on the site when it's happening if you can't see it. So, if you can't see it, you can't improve it. So having that extra visibility really helps.
Right, that makes sense. And thank you both for those insights. And now let's dive into the most significant factors contributing to this decreased productivity. What are some real examples of productivity sinks you've seen on today's job sites? Like what is slowing work down the most? Dean, do you have any insight on that?
Absolutely, I do. We're seeing much longer pre-construction periods right now. Obviously, I think design is so important. As Carrie mentioned earlier, if the design and the intent is not fully outlined, the trade craft can't put things in place even at the productivity that's planned on the project. Stoppages in the project cause so much interruption and just are a major contributor to a spiraling downward trend of lack of production. So one of the things that you're seeing here in the industry is, and we'll talk about technology later on, is how are we augmenting or how are we influencing that to be better in our industry? One of the things that I see is the journeyman apprenticeship ratio. We have a much younger workforce, and so the learning curve is fairly steep. We're seeing many subcontractors move towards a sole sourced or an installation model that is specific to a specific trade. So we used to have tradespeople that were very diverse and they did many things, but now we're into much more specialized silos of work, and so there's a handoff that happens much more frequently now than what happened maybe 10 or 15 years ago.
Sorry, I was going to say, Dean, do you think that some of the reasons that the pre-construction has extended out to be longer now, it has to do with some of those factors like the siloing and as well as the younger workforce? Has that pushed you guys to spend more time on pre-construction, do you think, as far as just making sure all the T's are crossed, all the I's are dotted?
Carrie, that's a great question. We do know that once the design hits a certain stage, when we get into construction documents, we move from the design development stage into the CD stage, that there's a varying degree of, I say, understanding or misunderstanding, like what really is the model behind design development and construction drawings. When the drawings are complete and when we're able to go to market and when we've got a defined model that is buildable, I've seen the trades pull off some amazing production, but that's not the norm. The norm is getting to market faster. Our clients want to see their buildings grow out of their dream, grow out of what they're putting on the market. And what's happened is that has probably forced more progressive design or design design build models, much larger with preset GMPs and so on. So a lot of times what we're finding is that we are building alongside the design, and that is a I would say a finely tuned orchestra at best, as I would put it. You know, just in time construction and just in time design and just in time authorities are quite a balancing act. So that is a major contributor. But when you get that right, it translates into high production.
Right. And you had mentioned, Dean, just a little bit earlier about technology. Like, do you feel like technology plays a role here? And is it decreasing productivity? Is it helping with productivity? What have you found?
Well, it's a funny story. It's a great question because there's a sense of chasing the shiny penny. Everybody wants to have the new, greatest, what's the best looking technology out there. But I do encourage everyone that is in a technological trend to really understand what you need to operate your business. There has been, or there is a huge increase in how technology supports the world of construction, both from a productive and non-productive sense. What we are seeing is the evolution of AI and the more accurate way to track project schedules, earn value, quality control. So I think because of the whole production and lack of, and the way the market is going, and the way that the trade craft is coming on board, we're having to use technology to support getting the project to the finish line.
Right. And Carrie, do you have anything to add with that, with productivity and you know, where are the issues here? Where are the sticking points?
You know,
especially when technology.
Yeah, you know, I do. I see a lot of it on the tech side, obviously, because of where I sit. But you know, what I quite often see is, you know, having that additional technology. I think one of the things that we've seen is, you know, kind of to your point is, you know, or to your question is there is a lot of technology out there, and there's, you know, I think teams finding out what's best for them, what works best for them, and making sure they're utilizing the tools that they have is really key right now, because there are so many options, because there are so many things that are coming into the market. I think that is a constant, that's a constant battle, if you will, for general contractors, for owners, to make sure they're utilizing the right tools, to make sure that they're really, you know, using their time and money wisely when it comes to technology, that it's adding to the project, that it's not taking away from it. I think, you know, a lot of times things like, you know, when we're looking at reworks, or, you know, having to do rework or seeing errors on site, you know, those are a huge time suck, obviously. And when you're monitoring the site, when you're utilizing that technology, like Dean said, you know, using that to kind of see what's happening on site and to assist you in the project, I think that's a really big advantage, and it is hugely valuable and can help you in avoiding some of those mistakes and rework, especially when you've got this young workforce, like Dean mentioned earlier. You know, you've got young folks in there that are learning. They're sometimes learning by errors, unfortunately. And so anything we can do to help prevent or assist in those kind of ways, you know, obviously we love to be a helping hand in that. But, you know, vandalism is also a real big issue right now. I can name many sites, not just on one hand, but many sites that, you know, are dealing with these issues right now, today, this morning, yesterday, last night. I think there was a survey that you guys led that shows, you know, construction companies have battled job site theft a lot recently. You know, in the past 2 years, I think nearly 90% of delayed work was due to job site theft. 90%. That's a lot. So, if technology can provide assistance in those ways, with avoiding theft, preventing theft. If you're spending $500,000 on loss, that's or more in many cases, that's a huge cost and a huge delay for a project to have to work around and to weave in to, this fabulous product that they wanted to deliver on time and on budget. And I think, wasting time pulling workers from one job to another because you've got these extra additional issues popping up. I think, utilizing your technology like cameras on site can really assist with allowing you to, again, prevent and manage some of those delays and hopefully whittle those down to where that's not as big of an issue. I mean, again, 90%, that's a lot.
That's huge. Yeah, for sure. So now we know several things that are causing these slowdowns on job sites. What are the ramifications of just ignoring these things just because, the work is still getting done? But I assume that there's some pretty big drawbacks to ignoring these kinds of slowdowns. Dean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, there is. I mean, whenever you're stalling a workforce that's literally thousands of dollars per hour, it's going to have a reflect on the bottom line. Work might be getting done, but is it getting done the best way possible? We ask ourselves that question all the time. We ask ourselves, are we positioning our companies for success? And not just the general contractor, me speaking for PCL, but projects have to be designed to be successful for everybody. Subcontractors are coming to everybody that's on the project is there to conduct good business and make good money. And so profitable businesses are, that's how they survive. And that's how we move on to future work. And when they're not resolved, productivity issues can impact so much of the project, loss of revenue, worker confusion, lost material. We talked about that. And also now it's so many projects visible to, public entities, private organizations. Like there's a reputation at risk here. If you're a major company and you are hired to deliver a project, the last thing you want to hear about is delay, because of whatever. Not everybody can read through the fine print of what caused it, but that if your name is in front of it, then you're the one that's responsible for managing that outcome. When it comes to productivity, the owners they really want the truth, right? They want to know what's slowing them down. Every owner I talk to is happy to hear about wants to be transparent with us. They actually want to hear the stories that are causing delay. There used to be days where we had not as transparent relationship with our ownership group, but nowadays it's very open. They all want to hear about why is it slipping, what are the key dates. They all want to help. Everybody wants to get the project to the finish line the quickest way possible in great quality and, of course, exceptionally safe. That's number one. We want to make sure people are going home to their families, and that's how we focus and archive these projects.
Right. Carrie, do you have anything to tag on to that?
Yeah, I think, having the ownership be involved more commonly is a great point. And really everybody is working to, get to the finish line with a beautiful product and on time and on budget and all of that. And, when you have these, slowdowns that are impacting, whether that's, worker confusion or, think of like replacing workers, things like that. When you're the cost of training workers and replacing them and, maybe not having the best access for the owners, when you can, address that quickly, you can move closer to your finished project on time and on budget. But again, like I said, the cost of replacing those workers, worker confusion, things that are slowing you down, those are all things that you kind of have to deal with on the fly. And anything we can do to prevent that as much as possible is key to making sure that the project completes correctly. We don't want, Dean mentioned, worker safety, we don't want to have accidents on sites. That's not, we want everybody going home, and we don't, it's not good for the project or the families or in any way. So anything we can do to help avoid those mistakes, so that, there are no accidents. There are, hopefully very few, excuse me, but, hopefully not very many, and hopefully that, very minimal when they do happen. But, all of those things add up to completing, ultimately every job wants to be completed on time, on budget, and safely. And ultimately, safely is the biggest. So the less confusion, the less, mid-project replacement, things like that, help you meet those goals of safety and budget and time.
Right. And safe workers are happy workers, and happy workers give you happy clients. So, I mean, it just all kind of wraps up in a big bow there. So we've talked about these productivity problems. So I want to talk about the good stuff. How do we simplify this job site management to boost productivity? Dean, do you want to start on that one?
Sure. Well, job site management is complicated. There's no easy projects. There's no doubt that the world of trying to put capital projects together brings so many people, things, and places in one place to create something is daunting. Simplification doesn't mean easy. It just means simple. So I keep educating a lot of my clients and my staff about being simple. Why overcomplicate the challenge we already have? Important to remove the obstacles that get in our way. Every day is about managing obstacles, managing removing the roadblocks, taking away the things that that affect productivity. One of the things that I like that has come up in recent years, and that is the use of camera technology. Now, I'll throw one at Carrie here. We're able to see many parts of the project we weren't able to see before, even from a higher lens. Be able to see a 1,000 foot and a 10,000 foot view allows us to manage projects from different angles. So I'll throw the camera technology one there, Carrie, because it's very important, and it's an integral part of how we do business and how we capture our work. Many workers also ask me for a simpler process or procedure. We're so inundated with our phones, our iPad, our family life, getting to and from work, that really comes down to some of the simplest things. People now have a choice of where they work. Years ago, you were told where to go to work. You went to work, but people have choice. So I get a lot of feedback from job site management about what exists on your project. Do you have the right project chemistry for a high productive workforce? And simply, it really is quite simple. The vertical transportation, washroom locations, availability of food and shelter all matter in today's world. I mean, let's face it, people love to go to work to a high production, high producing project. And when you're a leader and you're known for producing an environment that allows people to do their very best, right? That's all we're trying to do, is we're trying to create an environment where people want to come to work. Like you said, a happy worker is a happy life. And they leave like they put in their best effort, and they leave confident and like they contributed. That's the best thing we can do. But it's our job to make sure that a job site is equipped to be able to do that. It's like going to the race. You don't go to the Indy with a go-kart. You take the best pit crew, the best car, you put in the best engine, and you do your very best. It's very simply that. You have to be prepared to put the very best on these projects so that it can provide the very best to the people who are doing the work.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And Dean, I think you're right. As far as, simplifying things like simple things like, where are the entrances to our project? Are there enough porta potties? Are there enough washrooms? Are there enough locations to eat that are close? Are there enough places for employees to quickly get on and off site, before and after work? I think, simple things like that really come down to, saving wasted time, reducing wasted time, keeping workers happy, keeping workers ready to come to the site. It's not a drastic, drain on them every day they have to come to work, based on, silly things that shouldn't even be coming into play. And cameras, Dean, thank you for that. We have seen those assist in a lot of ways, like even things as simple as, looking at, from an owner's point of view, for them to be able to see the site and get excited about how the project is going, or from a project manager standpoint of making sure those bathrooms, those porta potties are in the right spot, those entrances are in the right spot, things like that, as far as, being able to assist you, being an extra set of eyes, being an extra helping hand on the job site, so that your technology that you're putting into place is actually really assisting you in making it easier for not only like pre-planning when you're in the pre-planning phases of the project, but in the actual throughout the project, as you're actually working and assisting in things that make it easier for the workers on site and the project teams leading the projects.
Right. And so let's talk about how can we put these ideas into practice? So what best practices can you guys share to help them simplify this job site management? Carrie, you were kind of on that track.
Yeah,
already.
I mean, like I said, I think, simplifying, things like simplifying how workers get around the site. Is there a job site entrance that's hard to get to, or could there be a better location that makes it easier for workers to park or take public transportation directly to a project entrance? Or, are there, again, multiple washrooms, porta potties on site, so it's a quick break instead of a very long break every time you need to go run over there? Are there food locations close? All these little details that might get missed initially. That's pre-planning and making sure that, throughout the project, as the project changes, that those changes that might happen on site still keep those things in mind. You don't want a drained workforce that's then more likely to make mistakes. And, I think keeping as leadership, keeping those things in mind, even if you're somebody that hasn't been on the job site in a long time, keeping those little details in mind, and getting feedback from folks on site. If there's a team that's super drained and making a lot of mistakes, are there little things that we could change on site that would help assist in that, so that there are less mistakes made, so that the team isn't feeling drained? And I think, that helps with the buy-in, also from the team. You ask for feedback and they give you an idea, and you address it, and it gives them a little bit more confidence in the management and how things are going. And simple changes can sometimes make a really big difference. And again, with the cameras, monitoring footage and looking at that and seeing, okay, how can we do this better? How can we make adjustments? Are we able to share with our ownership so that they're staying happy as well? Are we able to notice different things for our workers so that they're feeling, acknowledged and seen, and that those little details are being addressed? I think it all comes into play when you're looking at a job site from the many eyes. It's not just, the project manager that's looking at the site. It's the project executives. It's people that are, higher up that are looking at how are we doing as a company. It's the ownership is, how's my project going? So I think there's a lot of moving pieces that are looking at the project. And again, like Dean said, all hoping for the best outcome, all hoping to, have the best project at the end of the day.
Right. And Dean, do you have anything to add to that? Like, as far as, because you're on the site, so as far as logistics management or anything like that?
Sure, I'd love to. Thanks. Yeah, of course. One of the things that I look at often is feedback from the trades and feedback from the people who do the work. And there's no doubt that the largest advantage is having an efficient logistics management plan. When you get into some very large projects and you don't understand, or you haven't measured what even simply like trucking does to a project, not only inside the project, but also around the perimeter, what it does to a neighborhood, the urban densification. We can't park trucks on the street anymore like we could 10 years ago. You've got to have a plan for that. So, and the workers on the job site, they want to be close to their work locations. I'll tell you a little story that happened while I was at LAX in Los Angeles. That I asked the mechanical subcontractor who had about 200 people on the job site. I said, "What's going to make you more efficient?" He goes, "Move the washrooms closer to us." I went, okay. So I did the math, and so that added up to, thousands of dollars per hour just in washroom travel. By the time a person, takes off their tools and walks to the washroom and does their thing, washes their hands, of course, it takes care of all the sanitation and comes back, maybe sees a buddy along the way and they talk about last night's baseball score. So, it all is a heavy contributor. The numbers in our industry show that out of 100% of a work hour, 27% of it is wasted doing something other than work. We're seeing that over 25% is gone from ancillary tasks. So interesting that, if we can just listen and adapt to what's being asked of us, we could actually improve our productivity and support what's happening on the project. I am on way too many projects, or visit way too many projects that have underestimated vertical transportation. The fact that trades have to get on a construction and man and material hoist or an elevator is probably the biggest understatement or undervalued equipment commodity on the project. I think we got to think about redundancy and over populate our equipment, so we give the trades a chance to get into place, especially when you're dealing with projects that are 25, 30, 40, 50 stories tall. There's a lot of vertical transportation, and I don't feel that in the past that many of us have done a great job at calculating that actual time. But I think today, through technology and programs that we've even adapted internally with our job site transport, we're able to even track, how long is a waiting time at a construction man and material hoist. The other two things that are really important is picking the right technology. I know it's vital. We keep talking about this, but I've seen so many technologies that hinder teams rather than provide the asset we're looking for. Feedback is essential. Keep it simple. And then finding a way to integrate devices. I still feel that the number one device is one you hold in your hand, is your phone. It's the device of choice. Everybody has one. They use it both in the workforce and personally. So it gives us a lot of power to get to various things. And I've seen tradespeople use it from looking up building code requirements to OSHA safety standards. So I'm an encourager of having the phone in the workplace for the right reason, because I do believe that our changing community is our youthfulness, and our youthfulness need to have this device at hand. It's very important. It's here to stay, and I think if we can embrace it and put it in our workforce, we can improve efficiency. I did want to talk a little bit about the project documents. Nothing kills a production more than unclear, uncoordinated drawings, and so I do want to emphasize that monitoring changes, like you see in the screen, is very important, and what the effective change is, and understanding that when things are unclear, a change can have a major impact. Hence, that's why when you put it all together, you put efficient technology, a well-crafted execution plan with great logistics, you can handle change much easier.
Right. Carrie, did you have anything you wanted to tack onto that before we move on to the next slide?
Yeah, I've got this saying in my mind, and I think, to make decisions, how you'll simplify, how anyone simplifies job site management, you obviously need to consider what's important to the company, what's important to the client, what's important to the workers on site. And as Dean's very familiar with, the Dave, the president and CEO of PCL, has this saying, everyone, every day, outperform. And I love that. But if everybody's going to do that, what tools do they need to make that happen? And how do we simplify that to allow those tools to get used properly? And I think, part of simplifying, means making sure your workers know how to use the tools you've given them. And again, if they are easier to use, then the chances of them using them correctly are going to be higher and are going to help make them easier to deploy on the site, help avoid setbacks, and allow them to outperform. So, they can follow that great saying, and they can outperform.
Right. Great. And we're just about getting to the end of our time today. So do you guys have any final words on why it's so important to simplify job site management? Dean?
I don't really have a long dissertation, but it'll improve communication. You'll stay on schedule. And I think if you do this adequately and above average, you'll protect your bottom line. Not much more to say than that. Just focus on keeping the project simple, efficient, and listen to the people who are running the project, and be adaptable. Be able to change when change is needed.
Right. What about you, Carrie?
I think the outcomes that you see from any project that's done a good job of implementing simple job site processes, the positive results, making the client happy, making workers happy, and that's what we want. That's what we want to ultimately make the client happy. We want to keep the workers happy, and we want to produce a good product that everybody's happy to be a part of. And it's not just this building that was built or this project that was finished. It was a really positive experience for the ownership, for the actual generals on the site, as well as all of their workers.
Right. All right. Thank you. And so I just want to thank you both, Carrie and Dean, for sharing your expertise with us today. And I also want to thank everyone who joined us. And we just have a few minutes left to address some of the questions that came in during our conversation. And please remember, if we don't get to your question today, we will follow up with you via email to get you the information that you need. So it looks like our first question is for Carrie. You mentioned talking to workers and getting their feedback. Can you explain more about this? Should it be a formal process, like a meeting or a survey, for example, or something that's done informally through casual conversations?
I think it could be both. I mean, if there's a formal process that Dean and his teams want to put in place, I think that's always good. Anytime you're getting feedback, it's a good thing, because it shows the workers and the employees that you care about what they have to say. But I think it also can be very simple as you're on site, asking for feedback, like Dean's story about LAX, simply asking what's going to make you more efficient, what's going to allow you to do a better job on site. So it can be something as simple as just putting the question out there and asking and making it clear that you care about what their opinion is, what their feedback is. I think, again, if you want to put a official process in place, great. But I think it can be something as simple as just making sure we're reaching out to workers on site, we're reaching out to trades on site to make sure that they're being able to be as productive and efficient as possible. So I don't think there's any real requirement for an official way to ask.
Right. All right. Thank you. And then we have time for one last question, and this one is for Dean. You mentioned that owners want progress and productivity updates more often. Does PCL have a formal process in place regarding how or when you update the owners? Do you share camera footage with them?
A great question. We sure do. We do have a formal process, and for most projects, it's a monthly report where we update the owner. We produce written, virtual, visual, and schedule updates that is monthly. Not to mention the owners' meetings that are usually prescribed on most projects. But we do have an informal process as well. As like I said earlier, the transparency between the ownership group and the contractor is much better than it was when I started my career. So the dialogue is actually happening behind the scenes, even without the formal process. And I think that's important to understand that, you know, having camera footage and having the owners that have 24/7 access to either fixed or tilt pen zoom camera type gives them the ability to see everything all the time. And we do use a lot of those footages if we're not walking the job, especially in remote instances where owners maybe can't make it to the project. We use them quite often to show them progress. We get to tell the story, and it all goes back to when you update progress or productivity, it's being able to share what's going well and what's not. And we use whatever technology we can to get that message across so that they have a clear understanding of how well or not the project is going.
Right. Great. Thank you so much. And on that note, that brings us to the end of our webinar. Thank you again, Dean and Carrie, for the great discussion today. This was such an informative conversation, and we really appreciate everyone who tuned in today. And today's webinar will be available on demand. So you'll receive an email soon with a link so you can rewatch it or you can share it with your colleagues. Have a great day.